Firstly, Michelle, thank you so much for travelling all the way from Mayo to join us today.
Thanks a million for having me. Delighted to be here.
I can't wait to get stuck in. I wanted to start today's podcast by just reading out a message that you sent to me on Instagram. And the reason I'm reading it out is because I think so many women think that rooting for other women or supporting other women takes away from their own success. And I think in order for us to root for other women, it takes a lot of self-awareness and self-acceptance. And I loved that about you. So when you messaged me, I went and I had a else stalk on the Instagram and I just love your page. And that's why I asked you to come on today. So I just want to read out the message that you sent me. Kellie, I love your page. It's hard to find down-to-earth, normal health and fitness pages, but I'm thoroughly enjoying yours. Such a sensible approach and I agree with your message. Well done. And here's a bit of inside goss, and I'm not going to name any names, but I've had a couple of messages like that from a handful of women, and I just think it's amazing. And I could actually tell you their names off because it stuck with me so much. But on the other hand, so my social media my following blew up in the last year or two. And before that, I would have been like, doing my thing. My message hasn't changed. And I would have messaged women whenever I saw their page. And I would have said, oh my God, I love your page. I love your message. Well done. And, some of them messaged back and said, thank you. And that's great. And, people are busy. I don't expect a reply. But some of those people, now that my page is blown up, have been like, oh my God, Kellie, your page is amazing. I'd love to be on the podcast. And I'm like, absolutely not.
It's so true. It is so true. It's like that whole thing of like, follow me when I'm popular, and then follow. Yeah. I very much believe in unique, independent, do your own thing, go against the grain. I love the underdog. They're the type of, that's why I loved your page and your message and wasn't looking for anything back. If you didn't message, it didn't bother me. So I carried on and then, she replied, that's brilliant. Fair play to Kellie, and then headed off again. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just love I love that you're like, support this woman and I'm not looking for anything in return, But again, I just think it requires a lot of self-awareness. Siobhan O'Hagan was on this podcast the last time and she said something like, when you see strong, kind of confident, independent women online, your automatic reaction for a lot of people is like, who the fuck does she think she is? And to be honest with you, like, I am here to tell everyone my story and not fucking try and make it look better than it is. But I used to be like that. I used to look at people who are so successful and I almost felt jealous and I was like, they must have had X, Y, and Z, having an excuse for their success.
Them, sure. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people unfortunately do that. So they see people's success and they're like, oh, that's because they had this or they had that. And it almost justifies them to stay stuck in their current situation. But anyway, that was just something I wanted to cover before we hopped into your story, because I just thought, well, like, that's so fucking nice to do, is to message someone you don't even know just to say, your page is great and I love what you do. And off the back of it, here you are. And I want to get stuck into your story because after I did follow you online, I couldn't believe your page. Actually, I was just like, oh my God, you've been through so much. You've achieved so much. And I think coming out the other side of that, the kind of message that you're spreading now is amazing. And it's very similar to me. I think, we'll get into it, but when you get like a health scare, it just, the way you look at life changes. So can you take us back to the beginning? Because I know you've been in the health and fitness industry for 20 years. You've owned your own gym. You've won Entrepreneur of the Year awards. You've just achieved so much, a life coach, all of this amazing stuff. But where did it start for you in terms of how did you get into the health and fitness industry and help people?
So for me, it's interesting when you say all of those things. Oh, you've won this or you've done that or whatever. But me and coming into the health and fitness industry started because I didn't feel like I was good at anything. So that was the only thing that I was good at. So I've been, I suppose, involved in sport and fitness and all that stuff. That just like any Irish household, there's the GAA, there's all of that stuff. So that was kind of where it all started. So for me, it was just a natural progression because I struggled quite academically in school. Always felt like I couldn't concentrate. I was stupid. I couldn't keep up with everybody else. Yet I was quite I was really good at sport, you know. So like I did eventually go on. I played for Westmeath. I won an All Ireland, you know. I won a league, Leinster, you know, with Westmeath. Like, so, sport was very prevalent and important to me. But on the other side, as I say, I struggled academically. So when I was going into school, or when I was leaving school, I actually thought I was going to join the army. That was kind of my first protocol. My dad is a sergeant in the army, well, retired now. So that was kind of where I was going, or personal training and fitness, because I was a little gym rat from about like 14, because there was a gym in my hometown in Moat, like, and it just wasn't heard of back then. You know, I'm in my 40s now, so, you know, back then there was no gyms, you know, and I loved it. I was like, I can be myself here. You know, I can bounce around. My energy is allowed here, you know, and who I am is okay here. So I suppose for me, I went into health and fitness not because I wanted to change the world. It was none of that at that time. It was purely because I'm not good at anything else. And this is the only thing this is the only thing I'm able to do. So that's kind of, I sort of, in one way, I was very lucky. I knew what I wanted to do. So when I got into it, I studied, you know, fitness instruction, and then went on. Like, I was qualified personal trainer in 2009, you know, when they just didn't exist. They were like, what the hell are you getting qualified in that for, you know? But I was very proactive about that because I loved the space. You know, I loved working in it. I was teaching fitness classes. I have international qualifications. It was just, I adored it. I lived, and I think a bit like you, my identity was wrapped up in fitness and sport, and that's what I did. You know, my name was Shelley Fitness before it evolved into coaching, you know, Michelle Filan coaching. So like, I was known as fitness, and I think that was a part of a struggle for me with everything that I'm sure we'll talk about later, with that identity shift of like, oh my God, I'm not that person anymore. What am I? Or, you know, where do I fit in the world? So for me, I got into it, very long-winded way of answering the question, but I got into it because I didn't believe I was good enough for anything else. And then when I got into it, because I had always sort of naturally been involved in that fitness kind of environment, I just loved it. So from there, I just studied, educated, kept going on, repeat. You know yourself, when you're interested in something, you'll keep going with that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of the back end story, if that answers it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, as you said, you knew that you love this and it's what you wanted to do. Because when you said that, I was thinking in my mind, I was like, oh, I actually didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. You know, I knew I was quite academic, but it came on the back of working very hard at it, you know, but that came from a place of trying to be the best and trying to prove myself. Yeah. So it was not like a choice, really. It was like I had all of this pressure on my shoulders, and, you know, I'm one of 6, and I was always known as the clever one. And Kellie, my granny's like, oh, she could. It's funny. Here's a funny story, actually. What's a counsellor, you know, in schools? Oh, yeah. Guidance counsellor. That's the one. They rang up my house after I'd left school and I was in college or whatever. My granny lives in our house, and she answered, and she's so proud of this. She's bloody hilarious. Like, she's a mad thing. But she answered and she's like, no, Kellie's not here. Who's this? And the guidance counsellor was saying, oh, it's guidance counsellor. I'm just seeing how she's getting on. And my granny was like, oh no, she's studying neuroscience in UCD. And she's like, she could read the dictionary since she was 3 years old. And this is she was delighted, and this is a running joke in the house. But for me, it actually put so much pressure on my shoulders that I felt like I had to, because, you know, maybe the others weren't going to take that route. So someone had to go to college and all of these things.
That was your identity.
Exactly. That was my identity back then. So, you know, I got good grades and stuff. But if I actually really thought about it, which you just made me think about it right there, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember one day I was just scrolling on the internet looking at college courses, and I was like, what do I want to do? And I was very good at science, and it was like, you know, the way you're drawn towards things. Like, my language is brutal, but maths and science I was quite good at. So I was like, okay, I'll do a science course. Then I was like, okay, I want to go to UCD. It's close to home. And I was scrolling and I saw neuroscience, and I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. So I got into it that end. And then through, like, I suppose I used... when you were saying there, you know, the gym was a place where you felt like you could be yourself. I used that through sport as well. Like, on the side, I was playing sport to, I suppose, release all of this pressure that was coming from all of the expectations I put on myself. But anyway, that was an absolute tangent there, but you made me think of that. So you were, so was this in Westmeath then? You were doing all of this, fitness and classes and all of these things?
I started there. My first job, official job, if you like, I suppose I've been working in the industry since like probably way too young. But anyways, my first official job was actually down in Longford. So I worked in Longford for a couple of years, and then I went to Sligo for a few years, and then I was predominantly in the regional sports centre in Athlone. So that was kind of where I was for about 6 years. And then I left. It's a funny story. I left there. I was actually 29 when I left the gym, and that was the year Westmeath, we were playing in the All-Ireland series, and we ended up winning. But I quit my job that year because I was turning 30 in November, and I had been doing this in gyms for, obviously my whole life. And that whole Jane Fonda like leotard thing, I had this thing in my head going, I can't be up doing like Jane Fonda leotards for the rest of my life. I'm nearly 30, I need to grow up kind of thing. So I handed notice in anyways, and quit my job. No job to go to. Like, don't do that at home, kids. Be more sensible than me. I quit my job. I was turning 30 in November, and I actually met Liam, my now husband, in December that year. So it was a really pivotal year as well, because we had won the All-Ireland. It was a great year. I'd quit my job. I'd met my husband. And then 3 months later, we were down in Kilkenny. We were living in Kilkenny together. So, yeah.
That's mad, actually, that you say that in terms of when you turn 30, you're like, I can't do this forever. What you probably were thinking, I need to get like a
proper job.
I was going to say proper job. And then I was like, shit, do I offend? But yeah, I get you. But it's so funny, Michelle. I was the opposite.
Yeah.
So when I hit 30, I was like, Kellie, stop doing what everyone fucking wants you to do, and maybe do something that you want to do yourself. That's so mad, because that was the year that I started, changing the way I thought about that way. But anyway, had you owned your own gym by that stage, or was that after?
No, this was after. So I had my mental midlife crisis at 30. And I actually went into sales and recruitment. Totally random. It was a great experience, though, I have to say. So I did work like this was commission based. So like you had to, work to earn. But I was so energy. I was like, I was well up for it. And then I ended up like working in the recruitment section and doing interviews and all that kind of stuff. So that was fine. The first 2 years, loved it. The second 2 years, I absolutely hated it. I just hated it. It was a completely different environment, obviously, than what I was used to before. So then myself and my husband, we moved back. We were living in Kildare at this time, and then we moved back to Mayo. And then once we moved back to Mayo, that was 2015, I went back into fitness, because I was like, this is just has to be the way it is for me. So then I started, now I live in Mayo, and when we moved down, I don't know anyone. I don't have any family down there. I didn't have friends down there. And my husband had been away, like he'd been living away for, 17 years. So like him coming back, there's not, it's like a new place. We were also living in Castlebar, so not out in Colossar or Swinford where he's from. So literally was, like a brand new place. He didn't know anyone. But I started in 2015, and I literally went with 2 clients, actually 4 clients. 2 of them paid me in 2015 to try and get myself back up and running, to be able to build a business enough to actually open a gym. So I opened the gym literally from the ground up, like the equipment, everything that goes into literally turning the key in the door. My poor husband was laying floors and everything. It was yourself now, as much as you can take on, to reduce costs and everything. So I opened the gym on the 5th of April, actually, 2019. And then I sold it last year. So I had it for 4 years.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. And then how did it cross over the Entrepreneur Award? Because when I saw that, I was so fascinated by this, female entrepreneur of the year. Was that the time you had the gym?
that was last year. Yeah, it was only last year actually. It was kind of from when I was literally out on my own in the last year, and it's how I transitioned from going to having a bricks and mortar business, if you like, to having an online business.
Oh wow, fair play to you.
It was that transition, I suppose, and how I managed that transition and just managed the business, I suppose, and everything as well. Like, you'd swear I know what I'm doing, I don't. But, it sounds very, but yeah, I suppose it's managing kind of that transition. And I suppose probably through my story as well, and everything that's happened kind of in the background of, yeah, okay, this is your business story, but you did that while all of these other things were happening behind as well. So I'm sure that was part of it as well. So yeah, I was delighted.
Oh, happy days. I didn't know it was only last year.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Fair play to you. And I think you were talking earlier about identity and stuff like that. I think, you know, you were running a physical business, gym. People came, you know, showed up, did the workout. And I think there's almost an identity around that, because I've talked to a lot of coaches and they're like, they would love to move online, but they're like, oh, that's, you know, a different space, or maybe not as beneficial as being face to face with people. But I believe that you can just help so many more people than face to face, you know.
And it's also, maybe it's an age thing as well. Like I grew up in the era where there was no Instagram, none of that. Like, so you were in the gyms and stuff. I do laugh, like I've 10 years of gym work and all that without one picture. I have no picture evidence. Like I have nothing as an OG. You know what I mean?
I promise. I own my own gym.
But even like the, you know, 20, like, oh my God, so many years ago, like we were walking around with Discmans. Like, do you know what I mean? It just didn't exist. Like we didn't have, you know, phones and all of that kind of stuff. So I suppose some of the people like myself that went from, I'm face to face, like this is how you do it, to then online, I couldn't figure that out. Is that concept of like, I don't know how to transition here because I love connecting with people. How do I do that same level of connection and do it online and then manage that? And I suppose what people don't realise, and as well, is that all the business element that goes behind that too. It's not, I can do the coaching, I can do the training, but it's all the business end and the systems and all the stuff is like, oh my God. So I suppose that's why it's what you're used to. It's your environment. You're used to doing face to face, and that's why some people might struggle with the online piece.
Yeah, totally agree, because so much goes in the background in terms of business. Like when I started up this whole coaching thing and stuff, I was like, oh, this is great. And then you're like, oh, I have to like have an accountant and I have to, like, it's just so overwhelming. And you said a second ago, I was laughing, you're like, sure, I'm acting like I know what I'm doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. You fucking do it, and then you discover how to do it as you go. So I love that. Just kind of changing topics a little bit, because this is, I suppose, what really kind of struck me on your page when I first kind of, as I said, went on and started looking at all of your content, was the surgery that you had. So look, I was trying to piece everything together. So from what I can see is when did you fall pregnant? What year was that?
So I had Colby in 2020.
2020. Okay. So deadly. Right. So you fell pregnant, you had your son Colby, and then was it like in the hospital you had a seizure or something like this? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. So everything was as normal. I had a healthy pregnancy. I didn't have any, issues. I breezed through it, touch wood. It was great. Thank God. And then went into to have Colby. Colby was breech. So, of course, I was annoyed. I mean, there was days I'd come, like Liam, my husband, would come home and you wouldn't know what position I'd be in. I was like all over the place trying to get Colby to turn in my belly. So the legs would be up, it'd be all over. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, just ignore me, step over me, carry on. But he didn't turn. So that was fine. So I had to have a section. So I had to have an elective. So when I went in, that everything was fine. It's great. No problem. Colby was born. That was brilliant. The next day, fine. I was just really exhausted, but I put it down to, you're just after having a baby, so you're not hardly going to be like out for a run the next day, So, but there was something wrong and I knew it. And this was obviously during COVID times as well. So all the restrictions and everything were in place as well. So like, Liam was out in the car park and all that, jazz that went with it. So he was actually at home because it was early in the morning and I had Colby and I was holding him and I knew there was something wrong. I could feel it. I was like, when I look back now, I'm like, it was like an aura. It was like something saying you need to put him down. So I literally just put him back into the bassinet beside me and I blacked out and had a full-blown seizure in the bed, basically. I mean, rattling around, I bit my tongue. It was horrendous. It was actually probably one of the, even though I ended up going through open brain surgery and I had an awake craniotomy where they woke me up during it and all of that particular moment and that seizure is one of the scariest things that's ever happened, because I was in a room with obviously other women and other babies as well. And when I woke up, I didn't know where I was. I had no memory. I had no memory of having a baby. I was screaming the place down. The room was full of doctors and nurses, all in and all wearing masks because, of course, COVID. I was hysterical, like absolutely hysterical. And obviously I don't remember like the seizure part, but poor Liam, because he got a phone call, you know, and he was out in the fields, whatever, delighted with himself, like up nice and early, you know, I have my little son and my wife is, you know what I mean, all happy or whatever. And then got a phone call going, look, you know, you need to get to the hospital, you know, straight away. So yeah, that was it was awful. It was absolutely awful, because that was the catalyst. That was the start of, your life is now going to change forever. You are now in the health system. There's something wrong with you. You know, there's something wrong with your health, and now we have to start investigating. And that moment changed everything, because it meant I wasn't allowed to drive because I'd had a seizure. I was living in the middle of nowhere, which is fabulous if you have a car. And I wasn't allowed to drive for a year because I had a seizure. But then because I had open brain surgery, I wasn't allowed to drive for another 6 months. So in total, I had 18 months off the road. And that was just one part of the puzzle that was really challenging, obviously. You know, you couldn't even go to Tesco. I couldn't go to Tesco on my own. Or, like, get a taxi to Tesco, or, you know, if I went to Tesco, my husband was sitting in the car outside, you know. So like all those small, tiny little things that we take for granted, that freedom, and that got me, because I'm really independent and my husband's independent and we have a great partnership, and we're brilliant, but I'm an independent person and I always have been. So to take my independence away was absolutely, that was massive, and that's a piece that I've had to work on over the years. So after the seizure, everything calmed down eventually, and that was fine. But they done tests and they found an AVM. So an AVM is an intravenous malformation, and it is really rare. It's only like 1% of the population. And of course, I had to get that. So like, can I just be average, please? I don't want any of this.
And was that brought on by pregnancy, or
no,
it would have always
had it.
Okay.
Yeah, I always had it. So it could have happened. So I suppose that's what led to having the brain surgery. So once they found the AVM, they were like, okay, well, you have this, and you could potentially have stroke, hemorrhage, like at any time. And that's why we have to do something about this. So I was a walking, ticking time bomb up until this point, you know. And I've played sport, contact sport, you know, like it could have happened at any stage. I'm blessed, and like my mother's passed away and she was watching. Her and Liam's mammy, Mary, the two of them were like, we need to watch her, because if I had a vaginal birth, it could have been a completely different story. So Colby saved my life, because that could have happened any time. So I firmly believe that I was breech for a reason. I was running and teaching step ropes and doing whatnot like until 9 months. So I was perfectly healthy. And it's not that you're only unhealthy if you're going to have a breech baby. But this is what my thought was. I'm really healthy and I'm doing taking all the things. Like, why am I having a section? Well, you need to have a section to save your life, or his life, or both lives, you know, because they didn't know what could have happened, you know, through the labour, if that was like, if I had to go through it that way. So yeah, I could have brought on the seizure, because it would have, because of the blood pressure and everything that happened. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, oh my God, these things, they lined up.
I have goosebumps in my bloody arm.
Yeah, they lined up for a reason. And he was breech for a reason, and like all of these things. So once they diagnosed that I had that began a 9-month-long tests up and down to Beaumont Hospital. I had 4, if anyone is familiar with any medical things, but I had 4 angiograms, and they're absolutely awful. It's where you put a catheter in through your groin, and you have to lie flat down on a bed, and they feed it. Sorry now if it's like too, like, oh yeah, maybe I should have given warning beforehand.
We want all the details.
But they put a catheter in through your groin, because they like go through your artery. So it's all the way up to your brain, and then they like light up. It's amazing what they can actually do, really. But they light up centers in your brain to see what's going on, so they can do different things. So for me, they needed to check where exactly the AVM was on my brain, what part of the brain it was affecting, whether it would affect my speech, language, all of those kinds of things. Now, most people are typically right-handed, and our speech is for people is typically on the left-hand side of your brain. So 10% of people, you'll know this, you're a neuro expert more than I am, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they said that, like, you know, most people are, you know, their speech is on the left-hand side, and only 10% roughly is on the right-hand side, and they tend to be left-handed. Guess who's left-handed? It's like, for fuck's sake. Like, come on, give me a break. Like, Like genuinely, you couldn't make this up, you know. So they done what was called a WADA test, and it's fascinating what they can do. So I was brought up, and they done the artery, and that was fine. Lit up the brain sensors, and then basically they switched my brain off. So not my brain, but the speech center in my brain off for like 90 seconds. It's fascinating.
Wow.
Because what they wanted to do was test what side my speech was on, and if my speech was on the right hand side. I'm hitting the microphone and everything now. I'm showing hands and everything here. Like,
I know.
if you can't see, I'm very animated with hands. So they switched off my speech center. So I was awake and then I was trying to talk. They were asking me specific questions, and then I couldn't speak. So they were like, "Oh, shite, her speech is on, the side that we don't want it on," and that. So lots and lots of tests and all of that. Long story short, that's not a long story short. That's a long story long. I ended up having the brain surgery on the 6th of September, 2021.
Okay, so that's 9 months after you gave
9
birth.
months after I gave birth. And I then spent 4 months in hospital. So the first month in Beaumont, they thought I was going to be in and out in like a couple of days, really. I was like, oh, happy days, that's great. But I ended up having really severe swelling on my brain. And I lost my speech, I lost my cognitive function, I lost my memory. Not like the movies. It's like, I don't remember anything. It's not that kind of dramatic. I had aphasia. So I literally had to learn how to talk, how to write and how to read again. I was in Beaumont, and like Liam, my husband, wasn't allowed in ever. So even after the surgery, he was not allowed in. So that was really, and I was so ill. Like I was so ill for the first, I've a few pictures of me, and that's it, because I don't remember anything else. So the hospital Liam would be trying to ring the hospital and my family and stuff. And it was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest.
So he wasn't allowed in.
No.
Was this because of COVID? Or
COVID, yeah. And he was never allowed in.
so you're in there on your own for 4 months?
Not completely for 4 months. For the first month, completely on my own.
Wow.
Yeah, after brain surgery.
Wow.
And I had no, it's your brain. So I don't even know what I was saying.
Yeah.
Take whatever you, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't need that part of my brain. You can have it. I don't know what I was saying or what was going on, Now, Liam was able to come up. He came up, and obviously we had Kobe as well, who was 9 months old. So, and we're in Mayo. So it's not like, I'll just pop over or anything, So yeah, he came up. Actually, it was around the time there was all that weird All Ireland stuff, and Mayo played Tyrone in the All Ireland. That was a sure thing that Mayo were going to win.
I remember that.
Yeah, that they didn't win. So Liam came up to that match and then called over to me afterwards, but I had to go outside. I wasn't allowed. He wasn't allowed into me. But I'd sit there and I can't talk. None of my words would come out. So it was almost like I was trapped in my own mind. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't say the words. It was so frustrating. And I couldn't spell. I think I'm spelling the words, and I can look back at the messages now and it's like, what the fuck? What were you saying? So it was crazy. It's amazing how your brain, just amazing what happens to your brain. So it was, a lot of swelling on the brain. So for the first month I was in Beaumont and I was on my own. So yeah, because it was big surgery, obviously. I took a day, it was 8-hour surgery kind of. It was a long.
Yeah, I've seen photos that you put up on Instagram of your head, and it's just.
And that's not even the half of it. They were just the ones I was able to take,
Yeah.
So that was fine. Then I got home for, I think, about 2 weeks. And then I went to the NRH, the National Rehabilitation Hospital in Dunleary.
Yeah.
And I was there for 3 months. And I was allowed to come home some weekends from there. So it wasn't like a full 3 months, with nobody, but not every weekend either. So it was, sporadic. And it was a nightmare because you're in Dunleary. Dunleary is not an easy place to get in and out of. I'm now off the road. I can't drive. We live in Mayo. So I'm like, it took me a day. It's ridiculous. The travel service is just so bad.
Yeah.
But, if you're living in the country, it took me the day to get home, and then I'd have to leave first thing on a Sunday morning. So I was literally getting kind of one night with my son, you know what I mean? And then you're back again. So, but they're absolutely fantastic up in the NRH. That's why anything I was saying, with spinal injuries and heads, and I met some of the best people in there between the patients and the staff, are absolutely, I cannot speak highly enough about them. And even Quest, who cover Roscommon, Mayo and Galway, do absolutely phenomenal work for people with brain injuries. And I still do work with them just to keep myself with attention, focus, concentration, all of those things that you'd never know from me, but I know, and it's because they're doing so much work with me that it helps me, day to day do what I'm doing, to the best that I can, given everything that has happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And was it in the NRH that you learned to like read, write and speak and everything
again? Yeah. So they it started to come back, but it was still, I'd forget words. I'd be like, oh God, like microphone. I'd be like, oh, what is that thing that you talk into? Like, oh, it's there, that kind of thing. It's so frustrating because it's like words were just falling out of my head. Now it started with, I do laugh. I don't know. Are you Anne and Barry generation? No, you're too young.
No,
you're way too young. Anyone that's born in the 80s will know what I'm talking about. But it's literally learning to read and write again, like right back to the basics. So that's what I was doing it started in Beaumont. They have a really fantastic neuro team in Beaumont. I have to say, they were fantastic in there. There's actually a lovely girl from Mayo as well, and she was brilliant. But they were really, really good, and they would actually come down and spend time with me, going through like literally giving me homework. Go and do this, and I was very practical minded as well. I was like, tell me what I need to do, and I'll go and do the work. You know what I mean? Because like I want to get better, so I'm not going to lie in bed and just cry about it. Just tell me what I need to do, and I'll do the best I can, basically. So they gave me a really good start. And then in the NRH, they really solidified everything. So they had, physios. Physio because my balance was gone to pot. And like I'm a yoga teacher as well, and I couldn't stand on one foot, because my balance was just completely... So physio, occupational therapy and speech and language. They were the kind of three main things. And then different things like putting you in situations where like my brain now is just overload. It's just, there's so much noise in the world. And after a brain injury, it can be very overwhelming. Like just being in a room listening to music can be like, oh my God. Or, if there's a party, you're like, or if there's a lot of people on the street. So put me into situations and things to see how I'm handling those and that because, so it was very practical support,
Yeah.
But 3 months in the hospital all the same and medication and all of that. So it was...
I feel a bit silly now because I was actually going to ask you about like how you felt because you're so active. Your whole background is health and fitness and, mine was as well. And when I suffered, back surgery last year, I just felt so lost because my ability to train was taken away from me.
Yeah.
And for you, I wanted to chat to you about like recovery and getting back to exercise. And just listening to your story there, I've chills because I was like, you didn't get to see your fucking son.
No. Yeah.
Who gives a fuck if you can run down the road?
Yeah.
It puts everything into perspective. It's just mental, And I can relate there where you're saying nothing as extreme as that, but Mo had the twins 7 weeks early. So they were in the NICU for 2 weeks. And, it's not as far as Mayo, Dublin, but we were like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive away.
Oh, yeah, it's still.
Yeah, and I was like, we were like traumatized that we couldn't get to bring our babies home. And I was just, while you were talking there, I was just like, my heart was just breaking,
Yeah, it's it was really tough. I don't know why. I feel like everything collapsed for me after. I feel like during was just do this now and you're going to do that and you're going to do this and everything's practical.
Yeah.
Myself and Lee were very, he was like, look, Michelle, this is what we have to do. Like, in order for you to come home and be in the best, condition you can be, these are the doctors, these are the specialists. We have to do this, like he's at home trying to work full time, newborn baby, or like just as during COVID as well, where it's like, do not leave your house. Nobody's allowed visit, so it was just, I don't know how we actually did it when you look back.
You're right though. It's about focusing on, I have to do this to get out. And that's, I'd say your whole mind was just focusing on getting better. So you were saying there, everything collapsed when you got home.
Yeah.
What happened then?
I think it was the whole, because I still had to go through, when you're in the system, when you're in the hospital and you're all that, it's almost like you're systemized. Like I knew what time I was getting up at. I knew what time I was having my lunch at. I knew what time I was going, whatever. And they looked after everything for me. So I had a routine. It was great. When you're at home, you're like, what time? Oh my God. I found it really overwhelming. In the middle of that, I'm trying to run a business. it's COVID as well. Like I had everything kind of organised before I went into the hospital because I was afraid things would happen. So I had kind of pre-planned a lot of things, you know. But you're trying to manage the business, and I just started to get like, God, I'm really stressed. I'm really overwhelmed. Why am I not enjoying this? I want to get back. And then I'd walk in and I'm like, God, I'm not happy. What's going on here? So I think it was the start of an awakening. And I think you have to go through that messy middle, that horrible, what the hell is going on with my life? What am I doing? What are my priorities? Why, I think that was kind of, because I had that awareness now, it was like, hang on a second, how do you want your life to look? Because how it is right now is not the future that you want to have and that you want to live in. So I think that's why it fell apart, because I was like, I just don't know what I want right now. I don't know what I want anymore. Things have changed. I've changed. My vision has changed. But I didn't know like what I was going to do or how I was going to manage it. And I just felt like, oh God, I'm a little bit trapped in this feeling at the moment, and I was trying to navigate, okay, well, what's going to be my next step? And it got bad. Like it got really, really bad. Because like you said, I wasn't allowed to exercise. So it wasn't like, oh, you can go back now and you can start. They were like, you're not allowed to exercise, because they didn't know what the crack was with my brain, basically. So they were like, no, you're not going lifting weights and you're not going doing running because, cardiovascular things or whatever. I don't know, whatever they were, blood pressures and all of that kind of stuff. I was on medication as well. The medication, I found out afterwards, like, I mean, absolutely. And anyone who's been on epileptic medication will resonate with this. Some people will, obviously not all, but it wasn't the right one for me. However, I didn't know that. Like I got to a point where I was like, Liam, I have nothing left to give in this life. Like that's how bad it was. And now my mood was low, but it was very much linked back to the medication that I was on. The medication I was taking literally drove me insane, to a point where, like, when you say, oh, I really want to like push my head, bang my head through a wall. I mean, I physically wanted to put my head through a wall, and I couldn't figure out, like, why am I so angry? Why am I so disjointed? Like, why do I feel just like I literally just wanted, as I say, put my, head through. I couldn't gather my thoughts, and get a clear picture. And everyone, so I went to therapy. I went to, counsellors and all of that, because, I'm so open to all of that, I'm like, tell me what to do so I can, And eventually it was one of the neuro psychologists that was like, Michelle, it's medication you're on. It was like, it's known for that. But everyone that I had gone to previously obviously didn't have medication experiences in counselling. They were talking me through the trauma of what happened, or the trauma of your past. And I was like, yeah, I can kind of deal with that, but there's just something not right. And then I got to come off the medication, and it was like, oh, okay. So I can breathe. And it's a really hard one to, like, oh my God, you're on medication and it completely changes your whole personality, but you don't clock that. And see, medication wise, they're like, okay, this is solving the seizure problem. You're not going to have a seizure because you're taking this medication. However, you're going to go fucking insane. You're going to be an insane woman. Women are all insane. You're going to be worse. We're going to take it up a notch for you, And that was kind of what it was. But you don't link that together because you're just in the middle of it. So you're like,
And you're like, I'm feeling like this because I've had this surgery, and it's you
I'm isolated. I can't drive. I'm pissed off. So all of those things. So of course, So they all believe, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, there's fucking more to it than
something
that.
wrong here.
Like I know that's a problem, but there's something more. Like there's something more. I was so angry. I was having panic attacks. Like it was hurt. Like it was debilitating. I couldn't leave the house. It was so bad. And then I came off the medication, and then I was really nervous. But I was like, oh my God, if I come off this, one, will I have a seizure? Because if I do, then I'm back off the road again. And two, what if this is the way I am?
What if it's not the medication?
What if it's not the medication?
Wow.
Yeah. What if it's your brain? What if it's who you are now?
This is the new you.
Yeah. So I was terrified. Yeah, terrified. And then I came off that, and I didn't want to put my head through a wall anymore. So I was like, yay! Woohoo! It was the meds. It's not me. Yeah, but it was I suppose that's why people see, like, and I do try, I think, to be raw and honest and stuff on social media, and I share and probably overshare a lot, and I do talk about the hard times, because I genuinely believe people will look at you going, oh, you're brilliant and you're doing this, that and the other. It's like, you've absolutely no idea how many times I've been in bed crying and I cannot get out of it. Like, you don't understand that that's the stuff that you're not seeing. So I suppose that's, for me, that's why I'm probably very much like about living your authentic life. Live your life by design. It's, you know, you only get one shot.
Yeah, but I think as well, I think we're lucky in the sense, right? So obviously unlucky that we've been through surgeries and emergency and all of these things. But I think we're lucky to have gone through that, to be able to get that awakening on the other side. And I don't want to sound like I'm preaching or, you know, coming from a place of superiority, but I genuinely feel that when you go through such a health scare like that, or I think there's two big things, maybe there's more, but for me it's, you know, if you go through a health scare like that, or else if you lose a loved one, so lose someone who's very, very close to you, I think those two scenarios really lead you to start looking at life differently.
Yeah.
And as you said, like, what do I want from life? You know, I'll never, ever forget when, you know, I went through emergency surgery and I was told I may never walk again. All of these crazy things, you know, I just remember thinking I will never take walking for granted. And my priorities just started to shift, you know, and I was like, why am I running myself into the ground, working 16 hours a day when, you know, my priority, I'm telling people my priority are my kids, but is that how I'm showing up? And just, it's like an awakening, you know, and also my wife's brother recently passed away only about 8 weeks ago, really unexpected. Like, he's only 36, a year older than me. It was just so horrendous. It still is so horrendous. And as well, I remember the week after he died, I was just like, what am I what is, like, I know nobody else can see this because they're not going through it. Life, you know, goes on, unfortunately. But I was just like, what is everyone moaning about? What the fuck? Like, so what? You know, and it just brings everything back into perspective. And I think for me, it's all about, you know, appreciating now and being happy and grateful for what you have now, but while also still, you know, wanting to achieve your goals and maybe wanting to change your body. That's great, but stop deferring your fucking happiness until you get there. Yeah. Because unfortunately, you'll live your whole life like that. Because when you get to, let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking in their head, all I've ever wanted to do was, you know, have this type of figure or that type of figure. No, because when you get there, you'll want the next thing. Yeah. You know?
It's never enough.
Nothing, the bar shifts, nothing is ever enough. So I'm trying to teach people that, you know, yes, we can, you know, get you to the X dress size or whatever it is, but you're allowed to be happy now until you get there, you know? And
exactly, yeah.
One of my clients put up this thing on our community the other day and I was just like, wow, that's incredible. She put up like a picture and it said, don't miss out on 95% of your life just to weigh 5% less, you know? And it really is. But on the flip side of that, I get it because I had a weight issue. I struggled with my weight in my late teens and I didn't know, you know, what was necessary for long-term weight loss. And I was on the fad diets. I was restricting. I was binging, all of these different things. And if I go back to that time, I would have probably said the same, oh no, I will be happy once I get to this weight. Yeah. But, you know, it's only when you go through things. But that's what, as you said, I loved about your page because you show up on your Instagram page very raw, very authentic. And it's what draws me to your page. And I hope that I'm, you know, putting out the same message, you know, because as you said, like, who gets to see you when you're lying in bed crying and, you know, can't get out of bed? But then everyone looks at you online and thinks, oh, she's this amazing person. And you are this amazing person, but they don't get to see the other side of you. Yeah. And I'm so hell-bent of getting that message across online. This is a side of me. And yes, like you, yes, I do try and bring all sides to the table online, but I will not be putting up, you know, when things aren't going well and I'm upset and all of these different things. So it's about, you know, living your own life, living your authentic life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we had this chat before we came on here about, I find it fascinating because yes, I'm a qualified personal trainer, nutritionist, and I coach people, but we have the very same feelings around this. I'm not the person who is going to give you a nutrition plan and a training plan and say, hit your calories, get your steps,
Yeah.
do your sessions, away with you.
Yeah.
Come back and tell
Report
me.
back.
Report back, weekly.
When you do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you were saying because you came from that background, that was your identity. And you were thinking this is what you need. But now, recently, I saw that you qualified as a life coach.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, it actually made me think, because I don't look at myself as like a personal trainer and a nutritionist online or with my clients, I suppose. I look at myself as a coach.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do with my clients is I'm trying to, again, make them realize that happiness is now. And yes, you can still work towards what you've always wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
So what is, I suppose, is that what life coaching is about? I'm ignorant because I don't know about, the whole qualifications behind it, I suppose.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And I do believe that anyone, and I know you're a coach first, over personal trainer and nutritionist, because anyone can hand out those kind of programs, but how you coach and mentor and connect with the human person is what makes the change. That's the catalyst that makes a change, not the program, not the, anyone can do that, So it's how you're communicating, how you resonate. And everybody's going to resonate with different people in different ways. Like some people are like, oh, she's too loud. That's grand. That suits that person, or she's too whatever. And that's life. That's why everybody works in different jobs, and everybody, there's plenty of space. That's the whole point of like reaching out and saying, oh, Kellie, you're doing class. And being totally okay with it, because I don't like that's. I'm like, what difference is that's going to make? Like, she's going to steal a client up. Like, stop it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous.
And it's. I heard this quote before once. It's like blowing out someone else's flame won't make yours shine any brighter.
Yeah,
exactly. There's space for everyone. There's room.
Yeah, and I suppose for me, I've evolved a lot, because I suppose I'm over 20 years doing this kind of crack now. So I'm really interested, obviously, in the mindset piece, as I think most kind of good coaches are. Good coaches are interested in the mindset. And I would definitely be, it's something that always fascinated me, was why do people do what they do? Why do they act how they act? Why do they react how they react? Why do they make the decisions that they do? Why do they know if that's good for me, but they won't follow through in it? Like, I'm so interested to know why that is. Instead of just being like, here's the program, well, why aren't you following it? Do better because you're lazy. Like, that's just not practical, and it's not going to change anything for anybody. So coaching for me is present focused to help you progress to the future that you want to create. So you can't create your future by living in your past. So your past mindset is not going to get you to your future life. So it's about trying to feel grounded. We're living in a world now that's ridiculously busy. It is ridiculously busy. And we are dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit. And we have no time. If the one thing, I have no time. I have no time. Did you watch all of Bridgerton? Oh my God, yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, you have no time. It's like 3 seasons. Do you know what I mean? It's good. I've seen it. But you know what I mean? I don't use that as an excuse. I have no time. So, time is one of the most precious things that we have, because, you never know how much time you have. So how are you spending your time? And people think when they commit to like a change in lifestyle or health that they have to commit and it's going to change their lives for the rest of their lives, and it's going to be really hard and it's boring and it's, I have to give up everything and I can't have a life. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what you think, you're doing it wrong, and you're with the wrong coach and you're repeating the wrong patterns, So coaching is empowering you to make the decisions that you need to make in order to change your life. It's not mentoring. It's not telling you what to do. It's not coaching as such, if you like coaching in the sense that I would have typically thought coaching was, here's the skill sets that I know, now go do them. Coaching is really like finding, well, what do you need in your life, and giving them space and clarity to be able to make that decision. So I suppose for me, like, I qualified in life coaching, and I've finally named my business in that, because I was trying to figure out, like, who am I? What do I want? What do I offer? What's my message? And for me, so my business I've called is Life by Design, because I want women to feel empowered to create the lives that they want to live. Now, whether Life by Design is not, I need to go and move to Bali and I have to diss everybody and I'm going to work on the laptop and that's like my Life by Design. Life by Design can be, I want to have the power within myself to say no when I don't want to do a job and I want to stop people pleasing. That can be your Life by Design. So it's finding the things that you need in your life to serve you, because it's a journey. I hate that. Like, we're all on a journey. But, you know, like, what do you want your story to be? You know, what do you want your story to, you know, in 10 years from now, what do you want to look back on and be like, oh, I'm still trying to lose weight. I'm still fighting with that friend that I probably should not be friends with. I'm still like, if that's the kind of life that you want to live, then no problem. But if you're in a place where you're feeling like, you know what, I want change and life can be much better or much more evolved and much more, you know, much better, I suppose, than what I'm doing right now, then change has to happen and you have to invest in yourself. And I don't mean that in a financial sense. And yes, of course, hiring a coach, whether it's health and fitness or it's me, wellness and mindset or whatever, that's going to obviously help you. The catalyst is going to help you get where you want to go a little bit quicker because we have the skills and the education and the life experience to help you. But if you don't have the finance to do it, you can do it yourself. You know, and it starts with simple things like journaling. Well, will you take time to do it? No, probably not. You know, meditation. Oh, okay, meditation is going to help me clear my racing mind. I'm constantly overwhelmed. I'm constantly stressed. Will you do the meditation? No, I'll stay stressed and I'll stay overwhelmed.
In order to see change, you need to make change.
Yeah.
And you said it there a second ago, people want to do these extreme things now, but extreme change results in extreme regress, you know?
Yeah.
And I genuinely think that deep down, people know what to do.
Of course they
and
do.
my whole thing is like, so why aren't you doing it? And that's, I think, what we're trying to get across. That's my message anyway. Like, it's hard to sell. It's hard to sell because you're like,
God, it is.
do you know what? If you come work with me, do you know what? I'm going to change your mindset. You're going to live a happy life. And they're like, I just want to lose a bit of weight. So on the front end, I'm like, yes, of course, I will help you lose weight and I absolutely will. But it's so funny because my initial coaching is 8 weeks, right? And then clients stay on monthly and whatever. But I always say to clients, you know, at the very start, in 8 weeks' time, weight loss will be a byproduct of how you live your life. Yeah. And they're like, fuck off, Kellie. And by week 8, they're like, oh my God, this is mad.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
And I was chatting to a client yesterday and she was like, Kellie, the penny drop moment just happened and my friends are asking me how I've lost all of this weight and I couldn't explain it to them. And I was like, Aoife, that's my problem. You can't explain it through a reel. You can't explain it nearly on a podcast. It takes working with someone consistently to realize how important it is for this mindset shift, you know, because as I said, you know, like, let's say someone wants to lose weight. Pretty much everyone out there knows it's about energy balance, you know, eat in a deficit and you lose weight. If you know that, why the fuck haven't you been able to do it for the last X amount of years? It's because you need to fix what's going on inside of your head, you know, binge, restrict, all of these things, these self-limiting beliefs, these negative, and you said it earlier, what people do is they end up living their lives by repeating patterns over and over and over again. And you're never, ever going to break that pattern without awareness. And that's what I learned through therapy. For me, the biggest win in my life was figuring out the fucking shit I did, why I did it. And it all comes from past shit. And listen, my message is it's not your fault what happened to you in your past. Okay. So like for you, obviously it's not your fault you had, you know, that brain surgery. It's not my fault, all of these different things, but it is your fault how you're going to deal with it. Yeah. And not to sound harsh or whatever, but a lot of people choose to stay stuck and they're in their scenario and they're bitching and they're moaning about how awful their life is because of what happened. And listen, everyone has shit going on. I always say to people, you know, look down and stop looking up. We always look up and say, oh, it's easy for them because whatever. Look at people who are worse off than you, you know, and that's what I do. Like, there's so many people in the world who are in a worse off situation than I am.
To be honest, I'm like, stop fucking looking at anybody and look at yourself. Stop looking up, stop looking down, start looking in, right?
I fucking love it.
But like, who gives a
absolutely
fuck?
Love it.
You know, you're going to find people worse. You're going to find people. Stop fucking looking around you and start like, do you know what I mean? Start looking in and just sort your own shit out. Like, for fuck's sake, what's wrong with people? I'm going to keep searching to fix my life. Will you fucking stop? Eat an apple and go for a walk. For fuck's sake. Sorry, I've gone on a tangent there now. But people overcomplicate all of this stuff. There's so much self-care and self-this and self-that. Blah, 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 blah. Will you just stop? Like, Seriously though. You know what I mean? When you think about it, like, just stop. I'm talking to fill the air here because Kelly won't stop fucking laughing.
No, I couldn't. Do you know what? That is the highlight. That is it. I love it. Look at your fucking self. Stop looking at everyone else. I love it. Do you know it's tough though? Some people don't want to look at themselves.
It's hard to look.
Because it's so difficult. And I've been there. I've tried to avoid sitting with myself for so long, and I've said it on this podcast before. You haven't been stitches here. I said it on the podcast before. The first day I turned up, in therapy, I said to the counsellor, please stop what's going on in my mind and allow me to sit with myself, because I always say to Mo, right, I'm so jealous that she can just sit down and watch telly and just sit there and watch the telly.
Bitch.
I couldn't.
Yeah, that's like Liam. He's the same.
But see, that's me running from my own mind, though. It's focusing my attention on what I have to do, what's going on with work, with this client, that client, because I don't actually want to sit there and just be present with myself, because I don't want to deal with the shit that's going on in my mind. But I'm so much more advanced now for having done that. But it's uncomfortable. It's really so uncomfortable to look at yourself and realise why you're self-sabotaging, why you're a control freak, all of these different things. But in order to change something, you have to be aware of it. And, I believe that if we're not evolving, if we're not growing, we're fucking staying stagnant. I said to a client the other day, if you don't look at yourself each year and are kind of a bit embarrassed of how you were last year, you're not progressing. I look at myself 5 years ago and think, wow, she is an absolute mess. And even a year ago, maybe I wasn't a mess, but I've improved with my coaching. I've improved with being a parent, all of these different things. And it's that willingness to realise that you're not perfect and that we need to change. Because when I was in a really, really bad place in my life, I thought everything was grand. I thought I didn't need, I thought, I have the perfect life or whatever, until my mother came to me and she was like, Kelly, go to counselling because I can see you're dying. And then I was like, oh, and then everything opened. Yeah. And sorry, the point I was trying to make there was my coaching. Every year I'll be a better coach. I'll be a better coach next year than I am this year. But what I've started to realise, and I've been having chats with my clients about it, is what I'm actually doing with people is bringing an awareness to their life. Yeah. The nutrition plan I give you isn't the thing that's going to make you lose weight eventually. Yeah. It's me saying to you, well, why are you doing that? And highlighting all of these areas in their life that they need to break the patterns. Because if they keep this constant cycle, well, they're going to keep getting the same results. As you said earlier, you can't just expect things to change.
It's amazing, because even I would be more, I'm not, say weight loss and such anymore. It's very much, so I've two kind of main things. Rebalance and running is one. So me, it's the mindset around exercise, like why are you not doing it? What's stopping you from doing it? What are the blockers? All of that kind of thing. And then running. So I have a running program. So they're the kind of two things. So that's what the girls in my group, it's called the 90-day rebalance and running program. So that's what we're doing. It's 0 to 5K, or it's like an intermediate 5K. So it's beginners. This is not marathon people. They know what they're doing. You're like, I'm here for the beginners and we're all trudging along. It's not the running. It's the getting up early to go do the run. That's the piece that makes the difference. Not the run. It's the getting up. Oh my God, I feel so much better for getting up early. Oh my God, do you think you might do that again tomorrow? And then I get up again earlier tomorrow. Oh my God, I feel great for doing this. This really works for me, this getting up early thing. Okay, yeah, can you do that again? Maybe we'll try that again tomorrow. It's those little things that make the difference. And when you start doing that and it starts adding up to, oh, okay, this is actually... I feel a little bit better in myself because I'm getting up a bit earlier. Do you know what I'll do? Maybe I'll go for a walk because it's not raining, or maybe I'll do that run or whatever. Or, I'll actually, do you know what? I'm going to have a nice breakfast now because I'm up a little bit earlier and I have more time and I'm not stressing trying to get out the door and organise kids and do all of those things. So people think it's the exercise, and you know this yourself. They think it's the exercise and it's the meal plan. It's not. It's all the other habits around that. Get up early. If you're overwhelmed, if you're not sleeping, stop worrying about your exercise and get to bed. Start working, start from the minute you get up in the morning. What is happening throughout your day? Are you not sleeping? If you're not sleeping, your sleep is so important. And obviously, for cognitive, especially for brain function and all of that, you have to be getting quality sleep. If you're not sleeping, your decisions are all over the place the next day. I am so cranky. I can't cope with not having, a good night's sleep. And if I don't have a good night's sleep, that means it affects my food choices. I'm hungrier, all of these things. So everyone wants the pill, the magic, right? Can I have that? Give me that 6-week program and I'm going to, I'm going to do, no, you're not. Because you're not addressing the underlying things. You're not sleeping well. You're binge watching shite because you don't want to journal because you're afraid of, what you might, I don't know, come up or whatever it is. You have an actual issue with food and you're expecting to just count calories and that'll fix it. No, maybe you need to go to counselling to actually work out your relationship with food. Maybe it's beyond the scope of a coach and it's you that needs to actually take, control of that situation. Go, hang on a second, I'm not changing here in terms of my diet. And I just keep falling off the wagon or whatever way you want to put it. So maybe you need to actually go further and actually get help about that. There's nothing wrong with that. Go and do whatever it takes for you to be happier in your life. It's that simple.
It's that simple. But we live in a day and age where people want instant gratification. Yes. And you just said it there. You just said people want the magic pill.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to sell to people is the things that we get for free.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there sleep. Sleep is the foundation of health.
Oh, yeah.
You sleep better, you feel better, you're more likely to exercise. You're more likely to exercise, you're more likely to eat better.
Yeah.
It starts with the simple things, but you can't sell them.
Like stand there in a bikini going, go to sleep. That's the only way you're going to get eyes on you. And that's, but the message is please just go to sleep, at a decent hour. It's really hard. It is difficult for the message to come across, but actually looking after your health is really simple. It's so simple.
I've written down here, life is very simple really, but we get so caught up in trying to follow societal norms and do what others think we should do.
Yeah. In every facet, in every way. I was driving down the road the other day, there was a couple of girls across the road. They all look the exact same. They're all wearing the same, they look the same, they have the same lips, the same teeth, the same whatever, right? And that's fine. I've no judgment. I don't care what, I genuinely couldn't give a shite. I really couldn't. Maybe I should, but I couldn't care less what anyone does in the nicest way possible. You do you, I don't give a shit. Your man down the road is doing something, I don't give a shit. So you do you, but it's gone to a place where everybody looks the same, dresses the same, all of that. And it's oh my God, where has... I come off social media at times, whatever, because I find it very it's great. You need it for your business, blah, blah, blah. So there's pros and cons. But I believe you lose your authentic voice. You lose what's true to you when you're so consumed with what everybody else is doing. And I've done it. In the business I'm in, I've done it. You've been I'll roll out this program because that's what everyone else is doing and this is what I should be doing. And I'm I don't fucking want to do that. That doesn't sit right with me at all. And you're doing it because you're just caught up in following the crowd. And I've always been the one that will shout for the underdog and be the one that, if everyone's going that way and she's going that way, I'm going that way because I want to see where she's going because that's more interesting to me. So I really root for the underdog, for the people that feel, on the outside or not quite, because I think we need more of that. We need more of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what you said there resonated with me. I've started taking, 1 day a week off social media. It's that sounds so I'm addicted to it, but it's not. But you said it there about when you start thinking about what you should do and what others want you to do. A while ago, I remember I was about to post a story and before I posted it, I thought, what would people think of that though? And I was like, Kellie, this is not who you are. This is not what you ever wanted to do. And it's kind of like a reality check, but it's so easy to get caught up in all of this stuff. But you have to take a step back and look. Yeah. And I loved how you said there about, everybody is looking the same, everyone's doing the same. I genuinely believe that, it's so sad, but we are sold a story. We're sold a story. Go to school. Right, we have to go to school, then go to college. You'd be a great one if you went to college. Get yourself a nice steady job. I worked as a secondary school teacher, and when I said I was leaving to do online coaching, holy be the landlord of Jesus, this one is over bleeding rocker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we all do what we're told to do because we're told that would make us happy, right? Yeah. So we get the house, we get the job, we get the wife, the husband, the kids, and then what do we do? Well, you need more fucking money because you need more things. And if you have more things, you'll be happy. And God forbid you fucking put your head above water and you actually say to yourself, what do I want?
Yeah.
What do I want? And that's what coaching is. Coaching isn't giving you a fucking meal plan or a step goal or whatever. It's about empowering, that you used that word earlier and I bloody love it. It's about empowering each person that you work with to finally realise, what do you want?
Yes.
And as part of my coaching, I gave them, this is the teacher in me, but I gave them books to read, Atomic Habits, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, Lost Connections, all of these books. And after they read their books, they're like, I've had so many, and again, I don't want to go down the road of like talking about me and whatever, but I've had so many clients come to me and say to me, Kellie, am I supposed to be questioning my life? I only came to you till it was a bit away. And I'm like, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. People leaving jobs because they fucking
left jobs, like partners gone,
don't say
divorces.
Don't
I'm
say
like,
divorce.
my husband was like, Michelle, you're going to be known as the fucking divorce court. I'm like, no, I swear to God, I'm not doing it on purpose. But like, when you really wake up and you see the world around you and like how you're living, I was there. I was on that conveyor belt. From 16, I wanted to open my own gym. I did that. I walked in and I went, oh, why am I satisfied? Like, why, where's all the balloons and the whatever? No, I'll repaint that wall. I'll change this. It was never, ever enough. I never felt satisfied. And I swear we do laugh. I'm like, okay, COVID happened, Michelle didn't learn a lesson. She kept going on. Baby happened, Michelle didn't learn a lesson. Brain surgery, surely to fuck that'll do it. Like, you know what I mean? And I genuinely believe the universe was like, Michelle, hello, wake up. It's time for you to change your life or else you're just going down. Like, and I was stressed. I was stressed all the time. I loved my job. I love what I do and I love working in the industry, but I wasn't enjoying it. And it was a hamster wheel. And now I have a son. And like, life is different, and I'm in my 40s now. So I was like, I've spent the last how many years working and doing all of this stuff. So transitioning for me to work online made sense for the family that I have now. But it took a long time for me to let go of the old me because my identity was wrapped up in she's the fitness girl. She's training, she's with back end room with Mayo ladies. She's won an All Ireland. She opened the gym. She's this. So I use fitness. Now I put on weight. I'm after having a child. My body is different. And it's like, who the hell am I? So it was me that had to go back to the drawing board for me. And it's messy. It's messy, messy, messy. And that's the piece. They're like, oh, that's too messy for me. I'm going back to my familiar hell because that, the unfamiliar heaven is just, I can't cope with that because
most people choose misery over uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I literally said that in the last podcast, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable to do that work.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable to go against the grain because isn't it so easy just to get on with your fucking life, do what everyone else does and continue to be, and I was going to say miserable. Some people aren't miserable, but they're definitely not living a life that
it's not a life. Yeah.
they love.
Yeah.
And like, I know it's hard to look at it like this because we're all so focused on our own lives and our own now. But if you are able to zoom out and you are able to see the longevity of your life, it's a fucking blip. And it's not even a blip in the existence of the world. I'm not going to go mad into this. I absolutely love all that shit. But it's so short.
Yeah.
And why waste it just doing what everyone else did? And, when you get to your deathbed, like, oh yeah, wasn't that grand?
Yeah.
No, it's supposed to be fucking amazing because we only get this one shot, When we're chatting all about societal norms and conforming, and you mentioned your kid there, actually, everything I do, I bring it back to what would I want my kids to do? And I always say to Mo, I'm always like, because when you're growing up and you're like, oh, she's going to be a doctor, she's going to be this, that and the other. I genuinely hope that my girls, and if we have more kids or whatever, they do whatever makes them happy.
Yeah.
And
Very
that's what they'll
so.
be told because I think we grow up, and I certainly did, and it's not a place of badness, but parents and teachers and the people who you look up to are telling you to do all of these things. And again, it's not out of badness. They just want the best for you. But if my kids come to me and they say, I don't want to go to college, I want to go and travel the world, you fucking do it.
But life is different now as well. So like, now I do think that there's a lot of pressure and stress on young people. I'm so glad that I did not grow up with social media. Oh my God.
Stop.
I have
Don't.
I know I'm going to sound like, I'm 90 now, but like, I'm so happy. I mean, my first mobile phone, I think I was like 19 or something, and it was a brick. I had to put my ear down to it. It was so heavy. You know what I mean? So like, I really, enjoyed growing up. So there is a lot of pressure, on young people today. But I think that if our generation, because I do believe that our generation, and I think that women are stepping into a place of empowerment and starting to get a little bit more self-belief in themselves, that they are capable and they don't have to, ask for permission as much anymore. It's like, oh God, I'm sorry. Or, oh, stop apologizing for shit that you don't need to apologize for. Like we do that all the time. Oh, sorry. For what? stop apologizing. Like, and it's okay to step into your power. And like confidence, I see it is not confidence doesn't have to be the loudest person in the room. Confidence can actually be the person who's the quietest, who doesn't give a shit and doesn't need to be loud. So it's your perspective. And I just think that we have this, I think we're in a time where women are starting to become a lot more self-aware. The problem we have is obviously time constraints. People are doing so much. People are on the go so much. But I do believe that if you can start to cultivate some self-awareness, create some space and time for you to actually sit and think about what it is that you really want in life. And you might sit and think and find out, you know what? Jesus, I'm bloody happy and I don't need anything else. Because we compare ourselves to, the hot chick in California because we can. When we were younger, we compared ourselves to the neighbours.
Yeah.
That was all we had. So it's not as on a big a scale as it is now, and that scope and that reach that we can reach now. So that's why I always say you have to look inside yourself. And it's really hard and corny and awkward and like, how do you look? I don't know how to do that. Or, and it does start with journaling or meditation or even just going for a walk in nature without headphones. Imagine that. With no headphones. Nobody telling you what to do.
With your thoughts.
I know, man. Imagine alone with your thoughts going for a walk, and finding, why does that feel uncomfortable for me?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Approach it with curiosity rather than judgment. All we do is, I'm a fucking weirdo feeling. No, you're not. Why do you feel like that? But you're dead right. It all starts with self-awareness. Yeah. The whole game starts with self-awareness, but it's so hard to...
I had one of the girls in my group there because we're doing the running program. So running was one of the things that saved me after the brain injury. And when I was allowed to kind of get back, I couldn't get myself back into the gym and stuff. And I was really, really struggling kind of like physically in that. And it was running that really kind of really helped me. So that was kind of the back reason why I started the running program. I am an athletics coach as well, but so that was one of the reasons. But like in that group, they're so funny. Like we have the girls who, they obviously celebrate their wins and things like that. But what I really, really loved about it is that one of the girls was like, I want to thank me for getting up out of bed and like doing whatever. And everyone's like, yes, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, you're allowed to say that you've done something well. Like, why do we, oh no, God, no, no. And you stop making yourself so small. Like empower yourself. If you've done something good, like, and you're proud of yourself for doing it, say it.
And stop deflecting. It's like whenever, it's funny, but something you mentioned there made me think. I remember the time and someone said it to me. They're like, Kelly, stop deflecting. Take the compliment. And I was like, what, fuck it, I'm going to take it. And someone said, oh, you look nice today. And then I said, thank you. And they're almost like, what? Why didn't you say, oh no, it's only from pennies? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's gas. But you reminded me.
It's an Irish, look, it's ingrained in us. It's an Irish thing. But I just think that if we can just start to step a little bit more into the power that we have. And I think it starts with quieting your mind, quietening. I can't say that word. Quietening your life. Because when that becomes a little bit more silent, it gives you a chance to plant the seed to grow, like what's happening, growing thoughts within your mind. If you're busy with, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to drop the kids there, now I have to go pick that up, and then I have to get... How the hell do you know, like, whether you're coming or going if you have no space to actually sit down and think? And I suppose that's one of the reasons why I wanted the life coaching, because I've been to a life coach, Tara Rafter down in Mayo. Everyone will know her. She's absolutely unbelievable. But I've been to coaches and like that, just to create the space to like ask the questions about, like, what do I want? I don't know what I want. How do I figure that out? I'm totally lost. What do I want? And it's creating that space for someone to come in and actually go through that. Okay, well, let's deep dive into that and see exactly what that is, And a lot of transitions for people, like, I'm not sure about this job, I'm not sure about this relationship, or I'm not sure about myself. And it's creating that space to allow people to deep dive into that, because that's what they're not doing. They're just so caught up in the busy. The busy. And also it's about realising, as we said earlier, it's not going to be easy. No.
It's
horrible.
Going against, I think, going against what everyone else wants for you and doing what you want for you is very,
hard.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I love Modern Wisdom and Chris Williamson. Do you know the podcast?
Yeah.
He's amazing. And a while ago I saw a clip of his on Instagram, and I just thought about it there, but it was about, have you heard of the Mexican fisherman story? He tells this. it's a great way to finish the podcast and kind of encapsulate everything that we've talked about. But he basically, it's the story, right? An American big flashy businessman goes to Mexico on a holiday, and this local fisherman takes him out fishing. And the American businessman, he asked the fisherman, "How do you spend your time?" And the fisherman says, "Oh, well, I fish a little in the morning. We take the fish back, we cook it with the family, and then I spend the rest of the day with my kids." And the American businessman was like, "Well, that's stupid. Why don't you spend more time fishing? Then you get more fish. You can sell them at the market. You can get more money. And with that more money, you can then start to employ your friends. And then you will get way more fish, sell way more fish at the market, get loads of money." And then he was like, "And then you could incorporate in America. You could start your own company in America. And when you get that off the ground and running, then you could sell the business for loads of money." And the fisherman says, "But why would I do all that?" And he said, "So you can go home and fish a little bit in the morning and spend the rest of the day with your family." And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
We just do the thing because it's what we're told we should do, and it's what we're told will make us happy to get back to what we actually want. So I suppose the message I'm trying to get across there is happiness is right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say. It's so hard to get across to people.
Don't wait for something to happen in order for you to change your life and start living the life in the direction that you really want to live it in. Don't wait for someone to die. Don't wait for a health scare. Don't wait until you're too old. Like, if you're unhappy, or if you're in a place now where you're just, I don't know, maybe uncertain, it's not like you have to be full-blown miserable. You know, you might be just, I don't know, floating, and you're just not sure what it is. Start exploring what that means, you know, whether that's reaching out and actually booking a session with a coach, or whether I said, like, you know, go for a walk without your headphones on and see what actually comes up in your mind. You know, create some space to start thinking for yourself. We've stopped thinking for ourselves. You know, where is all the authentic new ideas in the world? You know what I mean? Stop, you know, give yourself some space to do that, but stop waiting for something to happen in order for you to make a change in your life. You know, you can start that today.
I love that. I love that. Stop waiting for change, or stop waiting for something bad to happen, you know. Like, a lot of people come to me and they're like, "Kellie, I'm pre-diabetic. I need to sort my life out now." No, sort it out now. I love that. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Listen, you gave me a laugh there like I've never had a laugh on a podcast before. I couldn't even speak. They'll see me on YouTube on the fucking under the table, bent over laughing. I love it. Stop fucking looking around you. Start looking in. I love it. Thanks so much, Michelle. That was just dead.
Thanks a million for having me.